Hey guys, my name is Francisco Hernandez, and today I'm doing another episode in my Building the Shot series, going over this image here on the screen of Julia from a recent photo shoot that we did at the beach. If you haven't seen a video from this series before, it's basically a video series where I do my best to break down everything that I can about how I created one photo of mine, because there's so many different elements that come together to create one photo. So I'm going to go ahead and again go over this image on the screen right here of Julia from the beach shoot that we did recently at South Padre Island. Before I continue, I do want to let you know that this video is sponsored by NordVPN. If you want to browse the internet safely and securely, then NordVPN allows you to do exactly that. Your data is extra protected with their double data encryption for increased anonymity, whether you're simply at home, whether you're traveling, or if you're simply at your local favorite coffee shop. There's absolutely no compromise in speed, as they offer over 5,500 super fast servers in over 60 countries, and it even works in China. NordVPN offers 24/7 customer support if you ever need it. There's absolutely no data logging whatsoever. And by using NordVPN, you can unlock a lot of extra TV shows and movies on your favorite streaming service in your area. Recently, when I was editing the photos from the beach photo shoot, I wanted to have background noise and thought to put on The Office, but it wasn't available on Netflix. So all I had to do was just open NordVPN, connect to somewhere outside of the US, like in Mexico or Canada, for example, and then I was instantly able to access The Office on Netflix. If you're still not sure about NordVPN, or if you think you're not going to use it often if you get it, then you can at least try it, because NordVPN offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to nordvpn.com/fjhphoto or use the code FJHphoto to get a 2-year plan plus a bonus gift with a huge discount. When you guys support the people that support my channel, it allows me to keep making free content, so definitely check out NordVPN. The camera that I used was the Sony a7R III, and the lenses that I used was the Sigma Art 35 f1.2. I used that one for a little bit of scenery in the shot, and then the Sigma Art 105 1.4 when I want to focus in a bit, which is what I used at the end of the photo shoot. The most important piece of gear though was the sensor ND filter that I use on my camera. It's a 6-stop ND filter that goes directly over my camera's sensor. This allows me to avoid fast shutter speeds. Since I use an ND filter, adding physical darkness to my camera sensor, I can expose the photo exactly how I want to and avoid using high-speed sync, which is anything past 1/250th of a second on my camera. In case you didn't know, using high-speed sync, using anything past 2/50th of a second on my camera, it depends on the camera that you have though, anything that's in high-speed sync causes a huge power loss in your strobe. So if you have a 600 watt strobe, for example, you might not be getting all 600 watts of power in your strobe using high-speed sync. So for the past 2 years or so, I've been using ND filters instead to avoid that power loss. The lighting was the Godox 8600 manual. I used that light only because my friend Adrian, who set up the photo shoot, was using that gear. I tend to prefer my Godox 8300 Pro with a smaller modifier, but for the shoot we used a 5-foot modifier, which ended up making it really difficult for the photo shoot, but it had some really great results, really soft light. So here's the very first photo I took of Julia, and it's definitely not the best photo I've ever taken. It's pretty much too bright for me. But the reason why I wanted to make this video is because sometimes there's images I take where they don't look good right away straight out of camera, but I know there's potential in those photos to create something good. And I wanted to highlight that in this video to show you guys that maybe you want to rethink those photos that you might have passed over at a photo shoot and see if there's potential in those photos to create something nice and worthwhile. For this photo, of course, it's too bright, but it's not too overexposed to the point where the highlights are overblown, where they're clipped and not salvageable, in other words. So when I took this photo, I knew that there was still that wiggle room to bring it to a nice exposure. And so I didn't delete this image right away. I still thought there was something worth manipulating in this photo to get it to a good point. For me, what ended up happening is that all I had to do is just lower the exposure a little bit, and then I was able to get a good standing point for me to edit the photo. If I didn't like the exposure and the pose of the shot, then I definitely wouldn't take the time to edit it, but the exposure was just something minor, and if I could just fix the exposure quickly, which is exactly what I just did, then I can still bring it into Photoshop and edit the photo nicely. After I adjusted the exposure a little bit dark, I did a lot of different things and created this photo right here. And of course, I will break down exactly what I did, but I wanted to give you guys a quick example of a overexposed image becoming into something worth, editing, worth creating. But after I took this photo and it was a little bit too bright, what I ended up doing was lowering the power of the strobe too low, and it ended up with something like this. This photo is the opposite of the first photo, and it's too dark. I need to increase the exposure exposure. And all I had to do in post in Lightroom was bring it up one stop, and I was able to create something really nicely with just that minor adjustment. What's good about the mistake that I made was that it actually allowed me to create two different types of images. One with more natural, more ambient light in the photo, which is this photo here. And with this other shot, it allowed me to get a more dramatic version with deeper shadows in this photo, because again, I was just lowering the entire ambient of the shot of this photo. And then I did the opposite with this photo by bringing up the exposure, bringing up the ambient. Both photos are taken with the exact same settings of f1.6, ISO 100 at 250th of a second with, of course, my 6-stop ND filter, but they're two completely different types of images in terms of the ambient. This photo is one that I actually shared in my behind the scenes video of this photo shoot, but this is how it looked like straight out of camera. And then I was able to edit it into this type of image right here. None of the photos that I'm gonna be showing you today are actually completely fine straight out of camera. But again, the whole point of me making this video and showing you guys these images is to show you guys that sometimes those photos that you might have passed over can end up being something great if you just give it a little bit of time and effort in editing and post-processing. Here's another photo that I ended up editing for the behind the scenes video, and then here's how it looks like edited. But let me go ahead and just quickly scroll through all the rest of the images and show you guys how they look like. And then you can see actually in this photo here, compared to this photo, you can see that I actually increased the power of the strobe to get it more of a correct straight out of camera shot instead of relying on editing. This photo is actually not the best photo I've ever taken. I don't really like the composition, but also keep in mind that since I was close to the sand was actually getting in my eyes, and I also believe in her eyes. So don't judge us too harshly, I guess is what I'm trying to say. After I took this photo, I ended up walking a little bit back and grabbing more of the scene, took another shot, and then I ended up taking a behind the scenes shot, which is what you're seeing on the screen right now. I think I've only done this one time in a video, but instead of showing you guys step by step how I got from completely unedited to edited, I'm gonna go ahead and do the exact opposite and take off some of the edits to go from edited to unedited. One thing that I do to all of my photos in Lightroom is use a lot of different adjustment brushes. So you can actually see in this photo, I have 4 adjustment brushes. One is gonna be for the eyes. I always like to bring out the eyes, and I'm gonna go ahead and just zoom in and then show you guys exactly what I mean by bringing out the eyes. The eyes are edited right here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and just delete this adjustment and show you guys exactly how it looked like before without any sort of adjustments to the eye. Again, here's what the eyes edited, and then how they look like straight out of camera. Another thing that I did to this photo was increase the ambient and the color temperature of just the background behind her. So you can see all that area in red. This is how it looked like after, and then here it looks like before. So it's a very drastic difference, but I felt like that area was completely dark and just kind of like an eyesore. So I increased the color temperature and the exposure, and I brought it to this level here. The third adjustment that I made to this photo was I increased the exposure and the shadows of the frame of the shot. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys, this is how it looks like after the adjustment, and here it looks like before. So it's kind of subtle, but still there. And then the very last adjustment that I made was I felt like the sand around her was very, very bright, so I darkened it. And I know you guys have asked me this before, if I edit the light around her, and I definitely do. If I feel like it's a distraction, then I will go ahead and just darken or brighten certain areas around her. So here's the after, and then here is the before of the ground around her becoming very bright to very, very dark right there. The white balance was actually something that I had to change pretty drastically. I do shoot auto white balance because it does do a great job most of the time, but sometimes it can do a bad job, and that's what I'm going to show you guys right now. You can see that the color temperature is 5100 with 12 there, but how it was taken straight out of camera was a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys right now. This is pretty much how it looks like straight out of camera. It's very, very warm. It's at 5850 at plus 11, so you can see it's definitely not as cool as it was once I adjusted the color temperature. Let me go ahead and just bring the exposure back to how it was before, and also take off the increased shadows and the decreased blacks, and also take off the extra vibrance that I added to the photo. And the very last thing, or the very first thing that I ended up doing to this photo was increasing the saturation of the colors. So let me go ahead and just reverse engineer and take off that extra saturation right now. It looks like I actually adjusted the hue of the red and the saturation and the hue of the green. And then the very last thing is the blue. So this is probably a big jump right now, so brace yourself for it. It's at plus 80 now, and it's at 0 now. And this is reverse engineered and pretty much how it looks like straight out of camera. And that's pretty much it for this video. Again, I just wanted to show you guys that sometimes your image might not look the best right away, But if you give it just a little bit of effort, then it can look pretty nice. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the very next video. Take care.